Hello, Malcolm. I'm so excited to be here with you today because I have something on my mind and we need to talk through it because I don't know, should we return to selling women as brides? And should we be selling off our children as
And you
partners?
also told me that this happened frequently, like way more recently than I thought. Like
Yeah,
in
no, we're
America.
gonna go into it. We're gonna go into it. I mean, also, like, can it be so wrong if, like, literally this practice gave birth to Santa Claus?
Wait, what? Hold on. Wait.
Well, Saint Nicholas
So
became famous for secretly providing dowry money to three impoverished sisters, saving them from a life of destitution and prostitution. That is where Saint Nicholas, like, it's one of his famous things. And the
really?
stocking tradition comes from this myth, perhaps, or story of him having put gold coins in their shoes or stockings that were drying by the fire at night. You didn't know this? Come on, you know your Christmas lore.
I didn't know that this was women so that they could buy husbands. I didn't know.
That's
No.
the thing. It's like this is so pervasive. And what our whole thing about culture is as a culture, if you want to maintain relevancy and strength, you should look to traditions that other cultures have widely adopted that appear to correlate with thriving in some way and ask yourself, hey, should I maybe be doing this? And keep in mind that in higher fertility rate countries, which are developing countries, 65 to 75% have bride prices or variants of that tradition. Whereas in developed countries, virtually 0% have these now. Although I'm going to argue actually that's not quite true.
Yeah, but
Um,
in rich Silicon Valley culture is quite common,
but
but
basically, like both historically and presently, the most wealthy and educated people are still doing it. So,
yeah.
but like what academics will probably tell you is like, well, it's lower than 5% in developed countries, and only those are like backwards immigrant communities. And I don't know about that, guys. The fertility rates of cultures that still practice this are they're higher. There are obviously a lot of things that are wrong with these things, but what they do is actually kind of it has me. You and I need to have a talk on whether or not we're going to do some variant of this because think about it. They legitimize marriage. You know, you're when you add a cost to something, you make it a bigger deal. You increase commitment and switching costs. Like divorce is a much bigger deal. You know,
Yeah,
when you,
I mean, so I think a huge part of this is switching costs.
yeah,
I think that that's why it develops so frequently as a practice
yeah.
because you're much less likely to get divorced or go off and try to marry multiple people if you have to pay a bunch of money to do it.
We'll get to that, but
So
like still.
can
But like
you?
also like it gets the family involved. So it's not just that money was attached to this, it's that like your mom and your dad and maybe your grandparents and maybe even your broader like family has contributed to your marriage like happening financially, and they're going to be pissed if you cheat or you know are a bad spouse or you screw it up somehow. And like I think that that pressure is really good, and we need to have parents become more involved in their kids matchmaking anyway. Plus in many of these traditions the money actually goes to the couple and gives them a nest egg, which is one of those like sort of sticking points these days where, you know, couples feel like, well, I can't get married. I can't start a family because I don't have, you know, I can't buy a house. I can't do money. And one of the more common forms of dowries and bride prices is indeed property, is most commonly money. This is the stuff that can really get a family started. So I'm like, oh gosh. Yeah. Well, so first, just to clarify, for those who are not very familiar with bride prices or dowries are what parents of a woman, like a young lady, will pay to the husband's family or the husband for basically marrying off their daughter. Bride prices are what grooms families or grooms pay for brides. And the difference in when there's a bride price or a dowry comes down to some interesting factors. And just to be clear, most cultures practice bride prices. Dowries are actually pretty unusual. But I actually think that based on the criteria that we're going to go over, that maybe dowries are what more developed countries should be considering. So bride prices are more common in polygynous cultures where you have multiple wives versus dowries where it's more common to be in monogamous cultures where there's a scarcity of wealthy women. And then bride prices, in contrast, they're more common where like manual labor is valued over capital. So they're more like rural, pastoral, agricultural, and where women's labor is really crucial for the family's survival. So you're paying for women because they're rare and you really need them, and you're kind of desperate to get
That
wives.
makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, when I think about where dowries are more often paid, they're like in like wealthy medieval European nobility, right?
Hmm.
Where
Hmm.
like the girls are not out working a farm and you're getting into monogamous relationships.
Yeah.
You're really sort of paying for the monogamy.
Yeah. And where bride prices are most common now are still in Africa for the most part. Like they're super pervasive in Africa.
I had an
And that's,
African friend who told me about a wedding she went to when we were in college together, and she went
yeah.
down for a wedding. And she said what they would do is they would lay out all of the things they had bought as a bride price
Whoa.
in front of all the wedding guests, right?
Oh, you show it
So all
off.
the wedding guests get to go up and look and inspect to see like how much like nice fabric was this woman worth. Like that's one of the big things she said is you'd have like
Wow.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
abundance
Because,
of
yeah, in some cases,
fabric,
traditional clothing is given, jewelry, gold.
animals, etc. And so
Hmm.
the guests could go up and inspect the things that were given for the bride price,
Oh,
which is
boy.
actually a quite fun thing to do at a wedding and quite a like in your face flex, so you can't really cheat it, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to put it on the table and everyone gets to see it.
That
I think it's
is
like a son
wild.
are gonna be like, Mom, Dad, I'm gonna look very bad in front of her entire family if you don't put this stuff up there. Like it's not handled in secret.
Well, I mean,
I
it's still functionally done, I think, in many modern Western weddings where they just like blow money on the party. I'd rather end up with like really nice stuff that you can use as a new couple
Yeah, instead
rather
of
than,
blowing it on the party to show how good it is. And I think that
yeah.
that's like a form of a bride price that still exists because remember the woman's parents are often expected to pay for the wedding.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
right in Western culture? The husbands?
Yes, the man's parents pay for the rehearsal dinner and the woman's parents pay for the wedding, I think is the
Which is
Western.
akin to a bride price, given how much weddings can cost. But if you're talking about actual like bride prices in Western cultures that you keep referring to, what she's referencing here is the frequency in Silicon Valley and rationalist and tech elite culture of marriage bounties.
Yeah, so
Um,
I can give you one example. I was thinking about reading off some more like private marriage bounties. In fact, even there are people who listen to this podcast who have open marriage bounties out.
yeah,
They're extremely common, and I think they're a great idea. They also allow they're typically marriage bounties as practiced by people in or adjacent to the effective altruist or rationalist communities who are pervasive in these circles throughout Europe and the United States. They put up the bounties themselves. New York Times has done articles about them. Both men and women put them up. They're often typically they range from like $10,000 to $100,000. I decided I wasn't going to read any of the more like personal ones, but Ayla has recently put out a
yeah.
$100,000 marriage bounty, and she put it very publicly on her Substack. So I feel like we can talk about
That's
that.
that's a very public bride price. Like that's not a trivial sum. That's 100,000. And I've seen other for 10,000, 100,000, 50,000. This is the price range that you typically get.
Yeah, and here's how it's presented, because I think the way she presents it is fairly representative of what they look like in terms of a cultural custom within this community today. She wrote, I have a 100,000 bounty on my marriage. If you introduce me to someone who I end up marrying, I'll pay you 100K upon marriage. Here are some details. 1, they shouldn't already be on my radar as someone I might be interested in. 2, you must make the intro explicitly in the context of this is for your bounty. If I casually meet them at a party you threw this or that you threw, this doesn't count. 3, send me a small blurb of why you picked them and why you think we'd get along. 4, you have to be the first person to make the recommendation. If things hit this part way, like maybe it's a gray area on how much of an acquaintance that person was to me before, or if I'd already had the intention of asking them out, then I'll give a portion of the bounty that feels equivalent to the degree to which you increased my odds. I can confirm the fraction it feels equivalent to me after you make the recommendation, but before I meet the person, or if we go out on our first date or whatever. It also counts if you get them to fill out my Date Me survey. You can go to Knowing Less and fill out her Date Me survey. Just make sure
Oh, and remember, this counts as us introducing you.
yeah, she writes, make sure they list your name in the who recommended you question. So please recommend Simone Collins or Malcolm Collins because, they
In a
could use
bunch
the
of,
money.
recommendations. No, but this is I think a very fair way to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And Ayla is much more organized about it. Like in her Date Me quiz, like she checks a whole bunch of things about, your personal, anxiety levels, your income level, how, your sexual proclivities, because she knows herself really well. The bounties that people put out more commonly, they'll like post something on Facebook of all places. That seems to be the most common place where they post them. And it will be in the form of a Google Doc that a lot of people can, it's a publicly posted Google Doc, so anyone can click through to it and see. And it's typically a list of like sort of criteria, and here's some stuff about me, and here's what I'm looking for, and here's the bounty, and here's how to specify that you are making the introduction, or here's how to reach out if you think that you are this person. And I love this. I wish that we had more organized data on how effective it is, but a lot of people are doing them. And I think there's some
Well,
there's
I
something
wanted to
to it.
create a dating site that was just for them. And the reason it would work so well is because you could have the dating site get a portion of the price. So you have
Ah,
a inbuilt monetization method,
uh-huh.
and you don't actually need to find people to sign up at the site. You could give a portion of the money to whoever posted it on the site. So you can have people go out and scour for these posts about
Ooh,
pitches to the general public, put the post on the site, and then they and the site get a portion if somebody finds the person through the site.
that's a fun idea. Yeah, we should consider doing that. Because yeah, I also want these people to find their partners. Like these are very awesome people who I want to see find love and have cute children, cute nerdy children who are terminally online, who can marry our children, maybe for a bride price or for a dowry. So the money shall flow. It's going to be great. But also, this is not the first time elite groups that are also technophilic and capitalistic and all that have practiced this tradition of selling off their children. Have you heard, Malcolm, of the dollar princesses?
No, tell me about this.
So the era of the dollar princesses spanned roughly from the 1870s to the early 1900s, and it peaked during the Gilded Age. So because that HBO show's out right now, a lot of people are actually talking about the dollar princesses online. The period saw wealthy American heiresses, often from newly rich industrialist or financier families, marrying into European aristocracy, particularly the British nobility. And this was sort of they were all marriages of convenience for the most part, because what you had was this marketplace of noble families in the UK who could not make money from their properties the same way. The Industrial Revolution kind of ruined their ability to like make money from their land the way they used to, and they were just being crushed by taxes, and they couldn't afford anything, and their manners were falling apart. So they were penniless but prestigious. And then you had all these zero prestige but money rich people in the United States, industrialists who were like, well, I want to be fancy. I'm just going to marry off my daughter to like a duke, and then she'll be really fancy. And you think, well, okay, whatever, like this wasn't very influential. But no, these marriages produced very culturally significant effects. Consider there was a Lady Randolph Churchill, that's Winston Churchill's mom. We have Winston Churchill thanks to dollar princesses and dowries. So not just Santa Claus, Malcolm. Winston bloody Churchill, okay?
Winston Churchill was the product of one of these sold women.
Yeah. So her dowry, by the way, which was reportedly $50 million at the time, $50,000 at the time, is roughly equivalent to 1.3 million today. So you're saying, oh, Ayla's is $100,000. No, 1.3 million is a lot. There's also another notable person who was produced by dollar princesses is Princess Diana. Diana Spencer.
Really?
Yeah. She was the daughter of, or sorry, she was a descendant of Frances Ellen Work, who married in 1880. She's the great grandmother of Princess Diana. So there are all these like notable and very impactful people. Like one of the dollar princesses, Nancy Langham Shaw, Lady Astor, became the first woman to take a seat in the British Parliament. A lot of these women went on to be very influential, like activists and whatnot. So these were pretty cool, and they were all again the result of dowries. And it's just so interesting to see these traditions compared to kind of the traditional way of doing it, or the way that it's still practiced in places like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Nepal, Iran, Egypt, Turkey, Azerbaijan. Like it's actually, there are a lot of countries where this takes place. And it pretty much all ends up being the same thing. It's sort of like these gifts that are transferred. But let's talk about like how we might do it, and how they're done right and wrong. Because I think that China, and you can get into this, is one example of how they are really done wrong and how they can actually suppress fertility.
Create a big problem. Yeah.
So go into the problem that they create in China.
Are you, I mean, are you
I,
sending me
I can
something?
tell. I can go over it.
Oh,
It's
you
just
go
you've
over
talked
it.
about
Yeah.
it a lot. How it's screwed up the real estate market.
Oh, well, so it became really common in China, like that as a man to marry a woman, you're supposed to have a house, right?
Mhm.
And the problem is that in China, this is a core store of wealth that they had. 73% of wealth is stored in real estate.
Mhm.
And the price of real estate versus the average daily wage is like yearly wage. I think it's like, you can look it up for like in mainland China. Simone, you should with AI. I think it's like, okay, I decided to look this up in post. Shanghai at 35.8 years you'd have to work on average to buy an apartment. Beijing at 35.6 years you'd have to work on average. That's 35 or around 36 years. The average person in that area would have to work to pay off their apartment. Full year's wage.
Yeah, it's insane.
So even if you did nothing but save, like for most of your life, you wouldn't be able to afford one in a major city.
And a lot of this is because in the case of China too, the scarce resource is women.
Yeah,
So like when you
can you
have men competing over women,
yeah, can you
it
look
is
up the number? Yeah, I mean, because
yeah.
women are a scarce resource, so you get more and more because not as many women are born as men because they're viewed as worth less. And because this version of a dowry sort of goes to the woman in a way when she gets married. And so it created a situation where it became unrealistic for most people who are going to marry to actually buy a house in the cities. They began to buy houses outside of cities that they never intended to live in as like a token to basically be like, I technically own a house. And in China, houses are worth more when they're unfurnished than when they're furnished because it's
Yeah.
bad feng shui. It would like if no one has ever lived in them and they've always stayed empty. And so they leave the apartment like that, just as like almost like a Chinese Bitcoin, I call it, like the Chinese.
Worse because it inherently devalues. These
It
places
inherently
are now
devalues.
crumbling.
Yeah.
They're abandoned.
And after 99 years, you lose your lease on it. So,
Yeah, and I'm not getting a straight answer, but like here's just one intro from The Economist. It also shows in cash terms because in China it's not just necessarily property; it could also be cash. Just how like out of control it is. This article titled "Bride Prices Are Surging in China. Why is the government struggling to curb them?" It starts, marriage in China can be mercenary. Quote, is 380 yuan a lot for a bride price? A woman in Guangdong asks on a social media site. She's thinking of getting married and wants to know how much her fiance's family should pay for her hand. The sum she is suggesting, equivalent to nearly $53,000, is more than 7 times her annual wage. Thousands reply. Many say she should demand more. Sis, your life is your own. Don't wrong yourself. At least ask for 888, says one.
Oh, and all of these women like brag about asking for so much and everything like
Yeah.
that. And
Mhm.
and guys are like, what's even the point, right?
This is like a random woman in China. She's not famous. I mean, Ayla's dowry is $100,000, and this random woman is like, well, it's 58, US dollars equivalent enough.
Yeah.
So this is just how out of control it gets.
On December 18th, 2024, Aoyang Weiwei, a 38-year-old single woman, sparked outrage at a matchmaking event demanding a bride price of 880,000 yuan, around $121,000, and made it clear that her price would only go up.
This year, it's 880,000 yuan. Next year, it'll be 1 million. I'm 38 this year.
Someone mocked her, laughing, just wait another 10 years. But after a series of failures, she publicly admitted her regret.
I'm the woman who asked for 800,000 yuan as a bride price. I truly regret it now. I've wasted my chances.
An internet user commented, in Jiangxi province, the average bride price is 380,000 yuan, about 52,000 USD. But in places like Lingang village, it's far worse. The bride price there ranges from 97,000 to 110,000 USD. Now, compare that to what most people actually earn. The annual income is 16,700 USD.
So I wouldn't want to create a cultural practice like if we, for our family religion, were to adopt this, where basically people are going into debt, or their family's going into debt, or like entering some form of insolvency, or delaying marriage. Because what also happens is a lot of people just start cohabitating and they just don't get married because they're like, I can't afford to get married. It's kind of like, it's as bad as unsustainably expensive weddings, for example. You don't want to do that. So I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to do any like insinuation that one partner owns the other. But like the common complaint, especially about dowries, which is what we're looking at in China here, or sorry, no, that's a bride price, about bride prices, is that they devalue women and turn them into commodities. But here, like you were saying, these women are bragging.
I would much prefer to be the commodity. Come on, I prefer that directionality.
Yes. No, I mean, like that sounds like, so I really think this whole thing about like, this devalues women, turns people into products that are bought and sold. Like, one, we kind of seem to enjoy it. And two, we should be looking at marriage as like a financial alliance and transaction that where money does change hands. What ideally in favor of like a nest egg for the couple that gets them started. But still, like, people should be reminded that marriage is a commercial arrangement. And this is a great way to prime it that way. And, I should point out that, like, at least in some countries, there's still like there's actual like disputes and demands that have led to cases of domestic violence and abuse and even murder. There are dowry deaths in South Asia where brides are harmed or killed over insufficient dowry payments. So I don't know. I just figure you should say no deal. I don't know why people are being killed over this, but I just want to point out,
brides are killed because the husband didn't give the family enough. Some examples of this happening. We have Visma case. This was in 2021 in India. A 22-year-old woman in Kerala was found dead in her husband's home shortly after marriage. Her family alleged she was abused over demands for more dowry, including gold and a car, despite already receiving significant payments. Then we have the Prajari family tragedy, India, 2024. In Uttar Pradesh, a woman named Anjali Gupta was allegedly killed by her in-laws over unmet dowry demands. Her family claimed that she was strangled and her body was staged as a suicide. In a horrific twist, her brother later sought revenge by attacking the accused, leading to further deaths. I'm not going to go over more because obviously it's pretty grisly, and most of these cases are in India or Pakistan.
No, because the dowries where the wife's family gives the husband's family money.
So in China, which one is common? I thought in China
dowry deaths are in South Asia. I don't think that in China they're as much of an issue. We're probably talking about other South Asian countries. For example, in Thailand, there's a form of payment to the groom's family that's called sin sod, that is in cash or gold, and I'm thinking it probably takes place more there. So it's insane. But I mean, it's also, I can't emphasize enough just how insane to me it is how much this is practiced and how high the prices are in places where people's wealth is much more constrained than in the United States. Like, I would consider sending tens of thousands of dollars for a bride price to be like a lot. That's like a big deal. But in Papua New Guinea, that's not uncommon. Papua New Guinea, like, where are they getting this money? So I don't know, man.
No, I mean, bride prices are a lot. And that's one of the reasons why I do not like them from a pronatalist perspective, because it puts the genetically successful families intrinsically on the back foot. The more kids you have, like a family like ours, especially because we're the gender equal, we'd never be able to get enough mates for our children.
Oh, yeah, unless St. Nicholas dropped
St. Nicholas came
in the stockings for us. Yeah.
They're the boy you're having now is what, like the fifth prince, right? Like kid number 5, right? We want to go for at least 7, right?
Yeah. Well, so here's what I think is right, though. And here's what I would like to look at creating. I think that, one, just this concept of, because keep in mind also, bride prices and dowries are often used in cultures as a form of like early inheritance, because it's kind of lame to like wait until you die to give money to kids. And in cultures where kids are more likely to take care of you in your old age anyway, like, you want to invest in them younger, because then they will be more wealthy when you actually need them to take care of you. Does that make sense? So these are more common in places that have crumbling social services, because parents are actively investing in their social safety net. And that means giving their kids the best early start possible.
Yeah.
Does it, so because
Explain what you mean by this.
okay, so if I know that I'm going to depend on my son or daughter to take care of me in old age, I'm not going to want to wait until I die to give them money because I'm going to be living in their freaking house. I'm going to be dependent on either them having the time or staff to take care of me and buy me medicine.
And our children are going to need the staff to take care of us. We require mini staff.
Yes, we need good care. And so if we were to wait until we literally died to give them money, one, like already that's too little too late. Like they're so far, like the cumulative advantage that early money gives to people. I mean, just alone considering compound interest. But if you're also thinking about education and early career gains, I mean, everything snowballs. When you're talking about a young couple, you want to give them that money at the beginning of their adulthood, not late. And that's something that's really smart, especially about dowries and bride prices that go directly to the bride and groom. And it doesn't have, cash is the most popular way for this to be, but even giving them a place to live, livestock, which could be like their economic means of starting a business, for example, or even clothing, that means they don't have to buy the clothing. So I don't really care what the form is, but if it gets them a head start, a jump start, especially if you're going to depend on them anyway in the future, there is an incentive for that. And so I love this idea of front loading your financial support to children, or at least, to young adults, so that they are more likely to get those cumulative benefits in the future. The money's going to go further if you give it earlier. So part of me was thinking like, well, maybe instead of like creating education savings accounts or like 529 accounts, or even like, trust funds or whatever, creating funds that like give grants to your children upon their marriage that are, contingent on that. One, motivates them to get married. Like imagine if trust fund kids only got their money if they got married and started having kids. They'd get married, like now they're just like sluts at Coachella. Like think of all the wonderful things.
There's no point. You're right. It reduces the point of getting married if you don't get some big boost. Like you're basically getting a proto inheritance at the point of marriage, which you don't get today, which encourages early marriage.
Yeah, exactly. And you could
That's
even
very
make
clever,
it
actually.
You could make it a trust, and you could make trust payments very contingent on things like this has to be for education, fertility, maybe a down payment on a house, like the kinds of things that would lead to a family's long-term flourishing. And we've already talked about like if we ever do a savings that we can allocate to our descendants, that we would want to be able to cover things like IVF and egg freezing and embryo freezing and that kind of thing. And also matching funds for starting a business. Remember how we were going to do that. One of the things we fantasized about is having like a trust for descendants, but also like people who come into the family, essentially, where you don't just give a kid money, like a grandkid or whatever, money for starting a business. If they come to you with a business proposition, you can agree to match funds raised from other parties, like legitimate third parties that do not, that are not friends and family, that are literally investing in them because they think it's a good idea.
Well, that's what we've decided to do with our kids.
But I think that dowries in the form of investments like this are great. That, you have to be married, and then as a couple, you will then unlock access to things like university education that's paid for, things like IVF, embryo freezing, things like maybe housing subsidies or matching funds for investment in business, because that would encourage people to start their families when otherwise they'd be like, oh, well, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait to start my family until after I have a house or my college education. And here you need to get married to get those things. And you just need to find ways in society to like flip that around. So I think I'm excited. I want to do that.
I like that if we have the wealth to do it. Yeah. I think it's better just to give them arranged marriages and
we're doing that anyway. But like that's the other thing though, is that dowries, bride prices, and arranged marriages all go hand in hand. I mean, many of these are negotiated between the families. This isn't like just putting it out there, like sign in the window, $58,000 for my daughter.
Well, that's the way ALAS works, find a guy who's good enough for me and you get the money.
Well, yeah, because she doesn't have her family's involvement, but like at least traditionally, like the cultural technology that appears to have been pervasively practiced across, like literally across the world. I mean, like again, St. Nicholas, this whole tradition, this was in Europe. You know, dowries were very popular in Europe until you could argue fairly recently. And then of course we still have dollar princesses in the United States. So dowries are totally still a thing. So that they've been in the United States, they've been in Europe, they're still very active in Africa. They're pretty common in East Asia, in the Middle East. I mean, there's kind of no region of the world, in Oceania as well, in freaking Papua New Guinea. So when you see a cultural technology like this that is so pervasive, you have to ask yourself, okay, if this many cultures have spontaneously evolved this amenity, we should take it somewhat seriously, even if it has a bad rep. Because it's, you know, again, Winston Churchill, Santa Claus, Princess Diana, good things have come from this. Okay. I'm a little too excited about it.
Yeah, I think that the way that it's practiced in rationalist circles right now is a very good thing. I mean, it's sort of a sign of the breakdown of marriage markets, to be honest. It's
totally
desperation to try to find somebody, and I've seen it work. We know a couple who got married based on this, who had been trying to find a wife for a very long time, and she'd been trying to find a husband for a long time. And I think they both had prices out. I had actually looked at one of their like sheets. No, he did. And I looked at a sheet before, and I knew this woman, and I never thought of her because, you know, she was older and had a kid already. But apparently somebody else did, and they were right. So I could have had that money. I could have had that.
Malcolm, we could have been rich.
Could have been rich.
We just have to find Ayla's future husband. You know, her special some pony is out there.
I promise, if we get this money, we will spend it all on drugs.
That's the point.
That's the point. I have never seen $100,000 of cocaine, and
how big would that be?
I literally have no idea. I've never bought cocaine. I have no idea what cocaine is size.
Yeah, like a brick. I don't know.
I always thought it'd be really fun to win the Nobel Prize and to blow it on cocaine and just like take a selfie with it, you know, like Nobel Prize, baby.
Oh my god,
we're gonna be partying for a week.
Yeah, that would be. It would be. I come on. What are the odds that someone hasn't already done that though?
Very high. I do not think that many people who have the mental cogency and facilities to win a Nobel Prize are doing enough drugs to blow the entire Nobel Prize on drugs.
There was that some famous scientist or something who went cold turkey for like a month or something because his friends bet that he couldn't.
I forgot.
And then he wrote something about like, clearly I'm able to do it, but the cost to humanity is so grave, you know, something along those lines.
Basically, they were like, you can't actually quit this. And he's like, I did, but I wasn't productive during that period.
It's like, well, now cancer isn't cured, you idiot. I needed that. You know, so
okay, maybe you're right. You know, we got Elon's thing here that the news is complaining about. And clearly he's productive.
It's working for him, whatever it is he's doing. Power to the people, you know. He's got his mix. Keep it up, right? And all these people, they're such hypocrites. Like, don't talk to me before I've had my coffee. Come on.
I love it. I by the way take narcotic. Everybody, they see me take it sometimes as well, which is an opioid agonist that prevents me from feeling happiness. The opposite of any narcotic that a normal person would take, but I take it to dull my emotional state so I'm not as prone to addiction. And I love that is our family. It's like, could you be more Puritan?
Right.
You take illicit drugs to block opioid pathways so that dopamine cannot cause you too much happiness.
But that's the thing is we'll just say, so we don't use this keyword too much, the supplementation that you choose to take, the substances you imbue, are a reflection of your cultural values and 100% can help you lean into what you think is most important. I mean, you had Benjamin Franklin convince a bunch of staff members that he was working with at one point to switch from their daily beer rations to like bread, because he's like, it's going to make you more productive. You're all just too sloshed to work. And he was just so adamant about shifting them away from that.
Was
And then
he so proud of himself, of course, being who he is.
he was proud of himself for freaking everything he did.
That is like everything in his autobiography.
Yeah, you guys, if you've not read Benjamin Franklin's autobiography, you've missed
so
out.
Petty and prideful that it actually loops around on likability.
Every stupid little thing, from like the loaves of bread, the rolls he stuck in his pockets when he first went to Philadelphia.
Funny because, you know, history remembers him as this great figure. If he could have known that history would remember him this way, oh my gosh,
he'd be even more insufferable. But I don't know if that's possible, because during his lifetime, he would have been like,
it worked out well. But no, this is one of these things where people wonder. There's some people out there who worry if they did right or if they did enough, you know, and I always feel bad for those famous people, because I'm like, what you went down in history, like your Van Goghs and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You want to like go back and give them a pat on the back and say, you did good, old boy. Yeah.
Actually, things work out. You know, Benjamin Franklin, you know, no, it's like,
no,
I am the greatest and the best at everything I do.
He was kind of the Trump of his time.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Actually, I'd say he was more Trump than Trump.
Oh, probably, actually. Yeah.
Probably, actually, because Trump has inside some level of insecurity that you could often see.
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin doesn't seem to have had this.
That's so true.
And then you have the one other figure in history, and I will go down as a figure in history. Me. Hey, come on. The Perinatalist movement, I think basically we've already won in terms of public recognition. It's very obvious there's going to be a continued threat. I'm seen as the leading voice within the movement.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are there.
That will be written about. Like when a history book is written in 20 years or 30 years, they're going to be like, oh, and during this period was the beginning of the Perinatalist movement with prominent advocates like Simone and Malcolm Collins. That's like the very least that would be written about us. Also, the first people to publicly genetically select for IQ. You know, so that's something that will also be written about. And obviously, how expansive that becomes. Is it a footnote, or is it, you know, and then they became well-known philosophical influencers of their era, or they started a new political coalition or were key figures in building it? That hasn't been written right. Like, obviously, there's things we're trying for. But if we do achieve those, and I am remembered in history, be it known that I am quite pleased with myself. Simone knows this. I'm not one of these. I'm not a Van Gogh over here, you know, looking at the wall.
Some tortured soul.
Am I the greatest and the best? It's like, well, people realize I'm the greatest and the best.
Yeah. When will they figure that one out? But here's the thing: is a lot of people are like that. You actually walk the walk. I observe you. I see you, and I like what you got, sir.
I mean, we're already there in terms of being like, you know, the Ben Franklin of his period, where he
did a lot of stuff. I mean, we literally have inventions he made in our house.
Yeah,
we have 2 Franklin stoves in our house, and it's just kind of wild that they're there. That our kids constantly shove things in there.
It interacted with all of the intellectual influencers of his time. Like, he knew a lot of them. They were friends of his, and I feel like we're already at that stage, right? Like,
yeah, he was going to whatever the hereticon of his time was. I guess kind of the Palace of Versailles was kind of like hereticon.
I know. I think the hereticon of his time was the National Congress of that period.
I don't know, though. No, that was just it was too much arguing. It wasn't sufficiently indulgent and fun. You have to go to a French salon in that period. And the ultimate fancy French salon essentially was Versailles at the time, I think. So that's...
Yeah. And one of the things we frequently talk about is that it's always surprising to me how few intellectual influencers actually matter.
Oh, you mean... Yeah, right. So this whole thing, something we talk about a lot internally when making strategic decisions about where our time should be applied is this something that is going to be filled by any competent person who will just make the most optimal decision? Or is this something where, depending on who does this thing, it will change the trajectory of our timeline of human history? Because there are so many people in the media who are only famous media figures because they're saying the thing that people want to hear at the time when they want to hear it. And so they get this big platform, and what they're saying isn't changing anyone's view. And then there are these very rare influencers who are saying stuff that really no one asked to hear, but is actually changing people's minds. And those people are quite unusual. Like Jordan Peterson, all this like daddy stuff. I mean, he's just saying, you know, make your bed. Like he's saying stuff that people want to hear at this time that makes them feel really good. He's not. I mean, he's helping some people get their lives together for sure, but he's not changing the trajectory of human thought or philosophy or history.
Yeah. And the people that are, the interesting thing about them, and I didn't expect this growing up, is that they find each other within any generation, and they have a network. Like they all know each other. And it was interesting.
Yeah, like you had these like people who hung out in Venetian cafes at the turn of the century from the 1800s to the 1900s. And you have this period in colonial America where all these people are writing the Federalist Papers. Yeah, you're right. It's just these weird clusters where they like all know each other. Weird. And like artists who all knew each other at like the same time. And
yeah, it's very weird. Yeah. Well, when you talk to somebody who you know is very influential and they're like, oh, and I've watched all your podcast episodes. This happened to me recently. And I was like, you what? Like you're what? You're famous. Why have you watched all of my podcast episodes? You know, and people I think are surprised by, they think that the level of like influence somebody has, somebody who I mention who has an extreme level of influence within this sphere, like the influencer sphere, but very low influence in the public, is Samo Berja.
Samo Berja, Brian Chow, very like these people are changing
because like shockingly low. If you go to his YouTube channel, because I've been watching some of his recently, he's got like 3.6 thousand followers.
Me too. Yeah, but he has like, the thing is, so people like Scott Alexander, Samo Berja, Brian Chow, these are people who maybe like your average normie on the street isn't hearing. So you might be like, well, they're not changing the trajectory of history. But the problem is that like the people in the room where the stuff happens and the people with the money and the people making major geopolitical decisions are reading these people's work, and they're reading it not like trying to make decisions.
And they're not reading Jordan Peterson. I love that you even laugh at the idea that they might.
It's a sweet idea. Yeah, that's not happening. That's not happening. No, that's right. That's very sweet.
No, but it's so people act like, I think there's this perception that the people who are creating these big cultural waves who's in the zeitgeist have a lot more influence than they do in sort of the actual deal makers, which has been very interesting to me as well, to sort of see all of this. And I think of the people who are in this group, we're probably the most introspective about the culture of this community and everything, because it's been very weird to me to watch it develop and congregate and how it.
I don't know. I think Brian Chow is he's way more plugged into like the EA rat. Well, no, like, so Scott Alexander is way more plugged into EA rat. Brian Chow is way more plugged into like younger emergent ventures, diaspora, like AI tech, hikikomori, idiot savant world. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of hyper.
A lot of them, I mean, they have their individual like Dutchdoms or whatever. Fiefdoms. But we've got fiefdoms too. I mean, our Discord is incredibly active.
It's so cool. Yeah.
Like, you just don't go to our fiefdom. You don't visit.
I wouldn't know, because
you live in the capital and you don't go visit your duchy. And it's been growing out of control. The people are mad at you and everything. You know, they're so many Discords have like revolted against the people who originally created them. I heard Rubyards did that to him. This is so no.
After the incident, or just
after the incident, you know, who knows if it's, well, I don't
know. But people have gone back to, like, people love him. People love him. They understand. You know, everyone has a moment.
I've heard it's been pretty, and not just after the incident. I think even before the incident, he had unfortunately, and this is one of the things, he had unfortunately reached a level of fame where he became normie-esque. And the normie-esque branding, I think, caused people to be looking for opportunities to turn against him. Because the brand that you and I appeal to is countercultural. It's the brand that Rubyard appealed to.
Oh, we get criticism all the time. What? This is not based enough. And we may even get that on this episode. What? Selling women not sufficiently based.
No, the point, that's not just what I'm talking about. I think you look at why, you know, Samo Berja has had a long shelf life, or Munchus Mulbug, you know, another one of these people we've had on. That's one of our episodes that did really well. Curtis Yarvin. You know, he I think would have his audience eventually turn against him if he became too famous, because part of his branding is underground.
Curtis Yarvin is probably one. Yeah, he's definitely one of those people.
And if he became like a normie YouTube channel that gets millions of views, like Rubyard, people are going to start to turn against him. And
Yeah.
that's what I think happened to Rubyard. Is Rubyard's branding was partially underground.
Well, what I'll say though is that the comments that I see about him online now, and I'm really happy to see this, very positive. Love his recent stuff. I think that he did the thing that you should do in these situations, which is just keep putting out good content, share your insights. Like, as long as you keep putting out good stuff that's inherently interesting and that gets people thinking, you know, you can recover, you know, as long as you just don't keep going off the rails. And he has returned to doing some really great stuff. So yeah, but anyway, yeah, sell your children.
Sell your children to me.
Really, I think my big thing here is front load the economic benefits that you pass to your children. Don't wait. And also make it contingent on becoming an adult. And we define becoming an adult as getting married and seriously starting like a family. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so weird when I reflect on my life these days. So thanks for helping me build this, Simone. This has been really cool.
I'm here for you.
And we can't talk about everything we're doing right now. I often say that, maybe in a few weeks.
We can ask them when we go what they're comfortable with us saying, but I don't want to burn future opportunities.
Yeah, well, and stuff always ends up leaking with us, which really frustrates me. Like in the past, we've said like, oh, people have been like, oh, you don't actually, like, nobody actually cares who you guys are, and then it, you know, leaks like a year later. Oh, they were actually meeting with Elon, you know, and it's like, okay, and I have no idea how that leaked, by the way.
I think, yeah, I don't.
I literally think the New York Times may have made it up, and there was nothing we could do about it.
Yeah, I don't know. At any rate, keep your mouth shut, Malcolm.
I'm keeping it shut.
Thank you. Beautiful.
I'm going to edit all of it out. All of that.
I've already packed my eggs for them. If they cancel on us, you know, for some, you know, no, it's a waste of eggs. They're already in my basket.
Yeah, you bought little baskets to bring them eggs, and
yeah, of course. If they let us through security, we'll see.
Yeah,
anyway, I love you. I'm gonna go get
Bye.
toasty. Bye. Tonight with sourdough flatbread.
So we're doing curry tonight.
Yes.
With sourdough flatbread. Do you know what type of curry? Or just gonna grab one?
I mean, so I can try to pull out. I know that we have rendang. I know that we have like a pineapple or mango curry, but do you have pineapple? Like, there's also just the mystery surprise curries.
Surprise curries. So are we, by the way, have we gone through all the chicken teriyaki?
No, there's a whole other bag of it. It's just that I'm making you flatbread tonight.
Oh no, I'm not asking for it. I'm just wondering how much more I have to eat before
I
can have
3 more nights of it. You have 3 more nights of it, and then just so much.
I'll note on other dishes, by the way, because I need to, as we go through the mystery stuff, because you haven't made it this day, so I'm not like, you know, just seeing it for the first time. I can better reflect on how much I like it.
Yeah.
The best of the dishes has been what appeared to be minced either.
Oh, that's all gone. Yeah. We're gonna need to do more.
Or basil chicken.
Yeah, it was the Burmese mint chicken that you really loved, and we need to get more Thai basil. What I recommend is next week we go to that Asian market, get a ton of Thai basil, and then I just make a very large batch of minced Burmese mint chicken, and then we save it so you can have lots. Because the problem is, it seems like we can only get that really good basil in bulk, and you know.
Yeah, well, and we can get some mint there too. No, what I might do when we get it in bulk is, I think you can probably preserve it, given that turning it into pesto preserves it in a way, just by putting the leaves in olive oil, and to create an olive oil basil.
So basically, to make pesto, just don't add anything to it. You just want me to grind up the leaves and put them in olive oil.
Yeah, and then we can use them on. I mean, that should work, right? Like, then we'll have.
Yeah, pesto is just. I mean, you usually freeze pesto if you're not going to use it in like a week, but I can freeze small batches of it.
Yeah.
either in ice cubes or whatever. So that's not a problem. It's more just a question of how you want it prepared and frozen on its own, just with olive oil, or with a little bit of salt, with a little bit of garlic. So that's up to you.
It might be sense to put in a little bit of garlic, you know.
I mean, I can always add garlic separately though. So
You know,
I feel like
something I wish you would do more, which you haven't done, and I'm somewhat surprised about, is you have not put in, God, what is it? A flavicon instead of regular
Lavacol. No,
salt.
no. It's bright orange, fine dust. It's not meant for curries. I know you wanted me to put it in your tamago last night.
No, why? Why? You won't even try it.
Intuitively, it doesn't check out for me. I'll try it at some point for something for you.
You won't even try, Simone. You can't say it doesn't work if you don't try it.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. You never know. Yeah, you're really good at fusion cooking, just like throwing in things in a way that actually works really well. So I should trust your intuition.
The thing is I know you know, in your head it seems like a terrible idea, right?
Mhm.
But you know, keep in mind that, what was I going to say? A lot of these cultures, flavicol is like a new invention that's used in a very niche area, which is popcorn for movie theaters. So I can see other people not being aware of how good it might be as an alternative to salt.
Yeah. Yeah, Flavicol's just, so path dependent in people's minds at this point of like, this is just for movie theater style popcorn that has to be popped also in a very specific way. Like you need to mix it in with your oil as it's melted. You don't add it after. So air popped popcorn, which is really popular now, is just not something that seems to use Flavicol. So yeah, no, okay. Just still like cooking with it, I'm like, I don't know if this bright orange super fine powder is the right thing, but
Simone,
I
like it on popcorn. I don't see why I wouldn't like it on a curry.
Yeah, I have to be super careful with proportions because a little goes a really long way.
Do you salt my curry?
No, typically not, actually.
Well, then I wouldn't put it on the curry. I put it on as an alternative for salt when you use salt.
Okay. I will do so. Now, keep in mind though, salt isn't always just salt. Salt sometimes is like a texture agent. Like consider salt on giant pretzels. You want those crunches that adds to the feature of it. So, you know, the reason you want Flavicol is you want a kernel that is coated in flavor. But and for the full tip for everyone, apparently how movie theater popcorn is made is they pop the popcorn in a mixture of coconut oil and Flavicol. So if you do like a third of a cup of popcorn, you're also adding in coconut oil and like half of a tablespoon of Flavicol, or maybe half a teaspoon. You have to be careful with your proportions, but you can get it easily on Amazon, not at a typical grocery store, but it made a big difference for our popcorn. So highly recommend it.
And all the reporters come because you make it most nights for the kids. And so they always try it and they're like, wow, that's actually really good popcorn.
Yeah, they're surprised by it. Yeah.
I love that you like know all this stuff about how to make these amazing.
That's YouTube shorts. Like you pointed out, like YouTube shorts are great for cooking tips. So we're just a YouTube family now.
People who can't cook, I don't understand it. Like it's such an easy thing. Like you just follow the directions, right?
Well, you don't, but it still comes out good.
Well, I don't, but I just like throw everything in and take two countries' dishes, try switching them out. Oh, can I preserve the paste of the basil leaves just by throwing them in oil? Anyway,
I think it's great.
Oh, and start with something like, you know, why don't we buy and sell women anymore?
Yeah.
And is it useful to do that?
Yeah. Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Can you sing? What about your other voice? What was that other way you were singing? You were singing like, "Oh, dear." Can you do that? Oh, now you're getting all sweet again. I see how it goes.